Welcome to another episode of the Reboot Chronicles, a no-holds-barred forum with global leaders, authors, entrepreneurs, and CEOs about how organizations stay focused on growth and innovation in unprecedented times. I'm your host, Dean Tobias, coming to you live from Reviv's North American headquarters in Chicago, and we would like to thank you for joining us from around the globe today. I'd like to welcome Jeff Katz to the Reboot Chronicles, a man who has rebooted many companies and helped transform the travel industry as the founding chairman and CEO of Orbitz. And he was also the CEO of Swissair. Nice little airline if you've ever flown that. And now he's the CEO of Journera, which creates a complete view of your travel journey and has been recognized as one of the world's top 10 most innovative companies. So Jeff, welcome to the program. It's good to see you.
Thank you. Nice to be here, Dean.
Yeah, I love the concept of Journera. One of the reasons we really wanted you on the program is a lot of people struggle with their phones these days. There's just got like 600 apps on this. I'm holding up my phone, those of you on the video thing. And so I see Journera as really solving a lot of opportunity, a lot of issues, but also it just seems like it's elevating a lot of opportunities between travelers and travel companies, or I think you call them publishers and travelers, and that whole ecosystem. So maybe we should start there. Just what is the problem that you're trying to solve with the platform?
Well, I know we're gonna talk a little bit about the consumer-facing problem we're trying to solve, this notion of seamless journey. But when I began this, I actually was really focused on how Google, Amazon, Facebook were evolving to be the sort of world's data owners. They get it from you. Sometimes you know it, sometimes you don't. And they use it to create good things and maybe some less good things. But if you're a travel company, American Airlines, British Airways, Marriott Hotels, it's very easy to get to a place where they're commoditized because they don't really know what's happening with their own data anymore. And the entity that does is Google, Facebook, and others. And so I really started this with the problem I was trying to solve is, let me work with these big companies to get them in a position that they understand the value of the data they have and can do two things. One is they can create dollars from it knowingly. And secondly, they can use it to create way better customer experiences. And that was the really high level problem I was going after.
Yeah, and the data rich companies and the data poor companies, everything from broadcast networks to, it seems like the airlines and the travel industry are finally getting it. So, for power users like me of things like United Airlines and, Marriott, but it always seems like they're just scratching the surface. They're not.
Correct. Yes.
And so how do you, I guess the best way is maybe tell us about the details of the platform without getting too geeky here, but let's maybe just kind of touch on the platform itself. Like how many partners are on it from a business point of view?
There's, I don't know, 40, 50 partners right now, but there's some very big brands who are our partners that helped me get it started. American and United, for example, Marriott, Hilton Hotels, Intercontinental Hotel Group, Hyatt Hotel based in Chicago. These were that's about 35% of all US origin travel in those few brands, and their partners in the platform. And the way the idea works is, I hate to use the word ecosystem, but I guess I will, is we
can't get away from that word, I know.
No. I won't talk about the warming planet, though.
No, not tonight.
But the way it works that's unique is we ingest from all our partners the data that's important to a customer's travel. It is all encrypted, and so there is no personal information at all in the Journera platform. And then using machine learning algorithms, we were able to say, hey, this Jeff Katz, who's got a Hyatt reservation, and he looks like some encrypted hash code, is the same person who has a reservation in American, and we can bring them together. We do that in real time. And every time you make a change to your Hyatt or your American travel, that's all kept in sync in real time. So this allows us, and that can be, we can bring in data from a restaurant, from an insurance company, from a luggage storage company, and so on. And that allows us to create this encrypted view of a single traveler's journey, and it's live.
And as a consumer, what am I looking at? Where am I getting these alerts?
So as a consumer, our model works like this. We have this magical view of the journey, but the only entity that can communicate with you, the traveler, is the brand you want to work with. So let's say Hyatt. So they can utilize this journey view to make better stuff happen for you before you're traveling, when you're traveling, after you're traveling.
Got it.
And so your relationship is with the brand, not with Journera. We're just infrastructure, to use a not sexy word.
No, it could be sexy if you're making money, obviously. But so the brands must love that, because, back to my example, United and American, I'm going to get alerts from each one of them. They're good at alerts on, United's got to be more, or American or Delta, whichever one you guys preferred. They have to be more responsive and agile and keep their, consumers updated. Whereas a hotel is more about, just tell us when the heck you're going to get here. So they're not telling you
Correct.
so much, hey, your room's not ready, or we're having a hurricane here. I mean, they could, but it's not as agile. And so I like that you're not introducing another, yet another app. Hertz already does this. They already check. They always know when my flight's run, if you bothered to put it in the first place in your reservation. They'll know it's running late and change it. So if I land in Berlin 2 hours late, they're still holding the car. They know I'm not a no-show.
Yeah. They
did you learn some of this? Did you learn some of that from the car industry at all?
Not I mean, because they do and they don't. I mean, first of all,
I'm giving them too much credit. Probably you're right.
You are. That's very kind
Sorry.
of you. So you have to put your flight information in there, and like many business travelers, we often change our flight, or if flight XYZ is late, we get on flight ABC, and Hertz doesn't know that. And the other thing that's happened with the pandemic is there's no humankind at a rental car facility anymore. So the automation that may present you with your key your car validation, and more this will happen on your phone, is out of sync now, because I'm coming at a different time. I may be coming to a different airport. That happens to me a lot.
Oh, it happens to me. Yeah, I've left my car at the wrong airport. Yeah, and we won't get into that.
I'm renting a car at DCA, and I'm landing at Dulles.
Exactly.
So these things happen a lot, and usually they happen to the most frequent, most valuable customers. So it's the human element too, that you, first of all, you don't want Dean to have to put in his flight number. You want it to just happen. This is what our infrastructure can help Hertz and American and United do. And then if you change, you want the world to know that, hey, I'm coming to Dulles, not DCA now. And that's an adjustment that happens. And then that Hertz can communicate to you in their app or whatever tool you want to use to say, hey, your car's at Dulles now. This is the car, this is the slot, and maybe this is your little QR code to get into the car.
Yeah, and here's a free sandwich because we know you haven't eaten. No, I'm kidding. So, you just made me think of something else. What I love about so far United, I'm not sure if American's doing this, but as soon as you book it, it automatically goes to your Outlook calendar or whatever you're registered with on the consumer side. From a business perspective, it's nice. When you change your flight, they're still kind of testing how do they take it out of your calendar and put the new one in. So sometimes you end up with that. Are you guys doing that integration as well? Because, business travelers, we want everything kind of synced with the phone, not just 20 alerts.
We can, and again, our model would be to have Microsoft as a customer in our ecosystem, so that if Jeff Katz has a Microsoft account or even a Gmail account, heaven forbid, on my Mac calendar, this would happen. Yeah. This would happen automatically, because the key for us is that the brands work together and approve the security aspects, permission, as if you will, so that it happens without you saying anything, doing anything. But to do that, they need you to say yes. Good for me.
A lot of privacy issues. Right, but it's always been the promise of AI, like even with Revive, the way we use AI to kind of do a diagnostic of a consumer and then recommend the right products. It's like, we just want it to be invisible. You called yourself an infrastructure thing. And I think that is a sexy word, because you essentially are the connected tissue between all these players in the ecosystem. And it does include my calendar and my social media feeds potentially.
Correct.
It's actually a good question. Are you doing anything with the social media guys?
Well, we have customers who have us feed these, what we call signals, into social media in real time. They are for marketing purposes at the moment, but that's, most of social media is really less about my operating life and more about what can I buy. And so we do use social media on behalf of customers to send a signal that would say, hey, we saw you just booked a flight.
Right.
Have you thought about this hotel for your destination?
Right.
And so you get really relevant targeting in social media feeds and video as well.
Yeah, of course. It's careful what you talk about. It'll show up on your Facebook. So what's been your toughest? Actually, I have another question. So we're looking to have the CEO of United on, as well as the new CEO of Southwest Airlines. Pretty dynamic guy. What would they say about Journera at this point? What would be if I asked them?
Well, I mean, Scott would know about us, because Scott was actually involved in the very earliest days. As you know, Scott's now working on some worldly strategic issues and have some of his attempts to work on it. So he knows about us, knows what we're doing, but he's going to be focused, like you mentioned, on sustainability or the health of his own.
During the pandemic, he was just trying to keep United alive. Exactly.
That's true too. At Southwest, now that they've transitioned, I don't actually know. I knew the prior CEO well and president well, but they're a unique culture. So but I think they would like what we do. But they're gonna go to their own on their own wavelength for a little while. But we hope to get them involved.
Yeah, more of a consumer traveler than business there, but they would debate that, I'm sure. So, so they like it. It's probably just not totally systemic. And is this ever an acquisition target? I mean, you don't want this. You're kind of like Switzerland. You want this to be an independent thing. You don't want an airline or a Marriott to own it, I guess.
But correct. Look, well, the reason venture capital invests in companies like ours is for the exit. And the exit could be giant public company. That's where Orbitz went, or it could be interesting platform that gets sucked into some other bigger entity. And there are a number of companies. I was talking with a senior person at LiveRamp, for example, former Axiom.
Sure.
And a lot of data is in everybody's parlance, and in some dimensions, we're further ahead than many because we are real time. We are completely encrypted. We're all API based, and it's sort of an infinite API. So we have some, and we have a few patents. So we have some technical and capabilities and exciting customers who would be of interest for an acquisition. We'll see if that ever happens. But it's a little early.
Without getting too geeky, I'm sure you're all over. I mean, you've got privacy down, a little bit of blockchain. Probably it's not the biggest important thing for you, but it's like you've got that, anonymity of the consumer and the trust with the brands, and the consumers trust the brands. So you don't have to build all that out. You're you're actually the powered by brand. So you and I have kind of crossed paths over the last decade or so in Silicon Valley, being CEOs of companies at the same time, probably going public at the same time, I think, as well on some of our companies. But so you've been doing Journera for a while. You've probably had a couple pivots, which is normal. Can you just tell us about your journey? More importantly, what's been your toughest challenge with this?
Every day seems tougher.
Whenever I ask that question, by the way, most big CEOs, they go back and talk about mistakes from 3 companies ago, but we want to hear one about this one.
No, that's good. Look, I think I'll tell you about the pivot, but I think that the toughest, question we raise is, why is this important? Why is facilitating and creating the power of my data. Why is that important? And why is the journey important? That's been this whole idea that of the data ecosystem has been really difficult to get big companies in particular to get, because if you're a big company, the view is very much it's my own world. I am the United States. I am, the EU. Kind of. It's a very sovereign view, and then therefore they think I can build this myself, and the world will come to me. But that's really not true in travel. Even the biggest brand who you can name is a small ass part of the travel ecosystem.
Small ass, that's a technical term.
Yeah, that's technical. I learned that at MIT. I took a whole class on small ass.
Sorry,
but they're really, but most big companies do not see their world that way, and then they also don't take ownership yet, and maybe they with the journey. They just, if I'm an airline, I'm focused on giving you an amazing reason to come back a lot to my airline. If I'm a hotel, the same thing. If I'm a restaurant, it's the same thing. But they do not value yet the rest of the journey. But we as travelers, the journey is everything for us. Nobody just flies, nobody just drives, nobody just goes to stays in a house or a hotel. There's always connectivity around that. And who does that work? You do, Dean. And sometimes it's painful. That's the consumer problem.
Right. So the pivot was probably more around what's the value, and what's the value in that connected tissue with all the partners?
Yeah. So we started out with this view that we can create, if we get people to understand the value, the dollar value of their data, and working with the ecosystem or just a partner, United and Marriott, you alluded to earlier, then we can help them create so many better opportunities to make more money as partners by connecting their data. The big pivot has been this in the pandemic, where everybody has been struggling to survive now coming out of it. The big pivot has been, wow, there's insights in the data that I need, because my whole knowledge about even my customer base is zero. Loyal travelers aren't loyal travelers anymore. They may not even travel anymore. It's who's valuable and who isn't. They don't know that anymore. So we pivoted around the customer demand, which was, I need the data for insights, and have started to grow revenue based on these insights from the quote ecosystem. And those insights are real. I can use it to find who's valuable, who's not valuable. How do I get more benefits with my partners, and so on.
Yeah, and going into 2023 coming up here, assuming we get through 22, you're right about a lot of companies in many industries, from retail to brands to travel in this case, are flying blind, or they're working off of data during a troubled time, and they don't know what to do. I mean, for example, like United Airlines has been extending, a lot of the VIP services like global services and stuff to people in hopes that they've chosen the right ones. Whereas some people have kind of given up on travel. Maybe that's a good pivot for our conversation. You've got so much experience. I mean, I know you've done ed tech and other industries and e-commerce and stuff, but let's talk about the future of travel. I've been traveling pretty heavily since 2020. After I got COVID, I was like, well, what the heck? I might as well get back out there. So much longer than others. So at first, the planes are all empty, mostly domestic, didn't do a lot of international because you just didn't know if you get home back then. And now they're all full. So they figured out load control and optimization. And I see so many consumers flying. What I've noticed lately here in, going into mid 22 is some business travelers are out, not a lot. It's looking like there'll be a lot this summer, but what's your more sophisticated view of the future of travel? I guess let's take business first and then hit consumer and how you can help.
Yeah. Well, I think business travel will be coming back. One of my best friends was a senior person at Goldman, and he used to say, I try not to make predictions during a shitstorm.
Exactly.
And so a lot of the opining that's happened on how this kind of format, Zoom, Google Meets, and so forth will change business travel is people just really don't know, but they do forecast business. Most brands are forecasting business travel to come back in the United States nearly fully by the end of this year, and certainly by the end of next year, and international to be 1 to 2 years lagged from that. So there is a high confidence that business travel and higher fares and higher rates will return over the next 2 years. It'll probably be a bit different in how it's spread out. A lot of company gatherings happening because there will be more hybrid work. So people business traveling to get together with other business colleagues rather than fixing a sawmill blade or going to a conference. But even that part of travel is expected to come back. And how Journera can help is all of these improvements, the seamless journey concept, but also knowing which business entities are out there traveling and how do I get more of their wallet. This is all in the data, so you either want to help a traveler who's already booked you and have a better experience, or an early check-in, a late checkout, for example, or you want to know that, wow, I'm American Airlines. This person booked on JetBlue, which together we can see, how do I make sure that the rest of their journey is either on JetBlue and American and not on some other airline? So the opportunity as business traveler come back to provide better service and to get more of wallet is all in the quote data, and that's got to be and that's what we do. We help brands understand the quote signals live.
Right. No, my unprofessional opinion is business travel is going to come back strong. There's so much pent up, and it already is in certain industries that aren't as, cautious, I guess. So I'm seeing that in conventions. I'm seeing that in like just my keynote schedule getting, more exciting going into 22 and 23. But I also see other companies, that like in Chicago, for instance, since that's where you're headquartered, who actually still don't want to host big outside meetings. And when I say big, I'm talking about on their campus at Google with like 30 people that I might bring in from Kellogg or something.
Yeah.
So they're very cautious about that. And so at some point, it's just liability mitigation than anything else. But on the other hand, there's just different factions of groups that have said, hey, I've always been a remote person. You guys finally get it. You don't need to spend that much on travel. Your earnings will be better. But you mentioned investment bankers and consultants. They love to travel. They've probably are the ones that were keeping a lot of the airlines afloat on full fare business routes. How about the consumer side? It is, what did you say, a shitstorm? It's crazy out there. So they either need to bring more load in, but the supply and demand, it seems off, and airlines are loving it because everything's sold out. People are not getting upgraded. People are buying first. So a lot of the, hardcore loyal customers are a little upset right now. So it just seems like it's still all out of whack a bit. What do you see happening there?
Well, travel demand is going to grow dramatically. There is a fair amount of money in the world there, but there's an insatiable demand for travel, and the highest growth rates for travel in the world will be in Asia and the Indian sort of subcontinent. It'll be just
essentially where the population is what you're saying.
Essentially, and those populations have traveled a lot less. But even in our country, the United States, there's especially now on your trips, I'm sure you see this, people who look like they've never traveled before, and that's true. That's true. So I think
I have another word for them, but it's not appropriate on this program.
You'll see big growth in travel, particularly leisure, particularly high value leisure. And I think we'll see a lot of business travel too, though perhaps a little bit different nature, to your point, less consultants traveling the world. But if your business is, I sat next to a guy on a plane going to Chicago during the pandemic, and his job is to fix industrial saw blades, like for sawmills.
Yeah.
And you don't zoom that in when you go into Racine, Wisconsin. You go there and you've got tools and you help the plant fix a giant saw blade.
Yeah, I don't have the market stats in front of me, but I assume Zoom has been trickling down a little bit, and Marriott's potentially a buy here, as people are saying. But again, life can change. Things can happen. I get promotions every day right now for, I think it was 22% off to London. Now it's like 50. It's like, so they're bringing back capacity, and people aren't ready to go to certain countries yet. So that'll be interesting to watch.
Yep.
What and then back to Journera, what this percentage of revenues right now, domestic being the U.S. versus global now, and then in the future, I guess, where do you see yourself going?
We started, and we are largely focused on U.S. And the reason has been U.S. companies have been more agile with, I would say, understanding and complying with the regulatory world of data. Yep. European companies have been, they are complying, but they're super conservative,
extremely strict.
Yep. Slower to monetize or even utilize in partnerships, way slower. So this will adjust, and it looks like it is adjusting. But we've focused, especially through the pandemic, on where customers are ready to move, and that's largely the U.S.
Yeah, good place to start. I think you said something to me, something like slow down to do more. Is that that doesn't seem to work for me sometimes. Can you help me out with this one?
Well,
I like it. I could put it on my wall, but I don't. Then I'm just still going crazy.
I think there's a look. I'm not Wittgenstein or some life philosopher of centuries repute, but I do think there's a tendency especially in entrepreneurs, to try to do everything and to try and be everywhere. And I don't want to say one should not do that, but it is also true that there tends to be a very few things that really, really matter, from our leadership, right? And so concentrating on a fewer set of things that really matter a lot in our leadership will create high impact, and it will also look like less freneticism, and that's slow. Slow is perhaps a simpler word than frenetic. And that's sort of a belief system I have, is that there's a very few things that really matter, and people can benefit, that I can help with, and my leadership can help with.
Exactly.
And focus there.
Yeah. And your people, they see the CEO as someone who brings calm and maybe wisdom, depending on their age, to a situation, and they're not erratic and jumping on the next shiny object, or like my dog chasing the ball. It's a very different, view. Jeff, I want to really thank you for joining us, but that's maybe a good outro here. Is just, let's keep going on that. You've scaled so many companies. I have as well, and I've always been admired, watching you, not having worked with you yet. But what advice would you give a lot of entrepreneurs that they've already got a company, maybe they've got 10 to 100 employees, they're scaling, but they could be doing something else to be more sustainable and profitable, and maybe a better target. What final thoughts would you give those CEOs?
Well, I'm going to be so basic. It's
sometimes that's what they need. Sometimes
I would say be honest, be respectful, listen hard to customers, because almost every win comes from listening thoughtfully to your customers. And the same can apply to your colleagues on your team. There's just a lot of power in that to cope with the difficulties of starting something new and trying to get it to a successful trajectory. And listening skills, particularly to customers, but also your team. And that, through just being respectfully honest, is also really powerful.
Yeah, and it sounds like that's what you've done with Journera. You listened to customers, you listened and talked to partners, which is a big part of your platform, But you also looked at what the digital guys were doing and how they were winning the data war. You're trying to bring that back to a traditional business mindset in a cooperative platform sort of way. So I don't know how you would do that without listening.
Correct. Right. Well, so far we're hopeful, and it's so much fun to be working with these partners, and some of the colleagues we get to work with too is also a big part of the joy of entrepreneurship.
Perfect. We'll have to leave it there. My favorite three things that come together in a Venn diagram is fun, money, and impact. And if you can play with any one of those two, or any two of those three, you're doing the right thing. So
I'm going to use that one as well as the shitstorm one. Thank you, Dean.
I'll send you a whole lecture on it if you'd like. It's about finding your company purpose. It's hard. Thanks, Jeff. We've been listening to Jeff Katz, who runs a company called Journera. You should check him out. You will probably see it pop up anywhere in your feeds when you're traveling. You just won't know he's there. And this is Dean Tobias with the Reboot Chronicles. I want to thank you for joining us today, and we'll see you soon.